My name is Logan Carter, and I'm a Marine. I've seen my share of hell, but nothing could have prepared me for what I went through in Afghanistan. Some days, it feels like it was yesterday. Other days, it feels like a lifetime ago. What happened over there changed me, and, in ways I never expected, it changed everything back home too. It started as a routine mission, at least, as routine as you can get in a war zone. We were flying low over a dry, rugged landscape in a chopper, the blades slicing through the thick, dusty air. I remember the hum of the engine vibrating beneath my boots, the sun setting over the mountains, casting long, quiet shadows. It almost felt peaceful, like the calm before a storm. I was near the door, my rifle across my lap, scanning the horizon out of habit. My team was quiet, focused. We'd been through this drill more times than I could count. You don't let your guard down, not here. Not ever. And then, it happened. "Incoming!" someone yelled, and before I could process the words, the world around me detonated. The chopper shuddered violently as an RPG hit us. The noise was deafening, like the sky had cracked open and swallowed us whole. Smoke filled the cabin, and the helicopter lurched wildly as the rotors fought to keep us airborne. "Hold on. We're going down," the pilot shouted, his voice strained but steady. My heart was in my throat as the ground rushed up at a terrifying speed. There was no time to think, just enough time to brace for impact. The crash was chaos, a blur of noise, pain, and confusion. I remember being thrown violently, the world flipping upside down as the chopper slammed into the dirt. And then, blackness. When I came to, the cabin was filled with choking smoke and the acrid smell of burning fuel. My ears were ringing, and pain radiated through my body like fire. "Carter, you good?" one of my teammates shouted, his voice muffled but urgent. I tried to respond, but all I could manage was a strangled whisper. "I'm hit. I can't move." The hours after the crash were a haze. My team pulled me from the wreckage, and I was airlifted to a medical facility in Pakistan. Surgeries and painkillers blurred everything into a dreamlike fog. The doctors told me I'd broken my back, but with time and rehab, they thought I'd walk again. They thought I'd get my life back. Eventually, I was stable enough to fly back to the States. I opted to recover at the Wounded Warrior Rehab Center, not far from my hometown. Being close to family felt like the right choice. When I arrived home, it was a mix of emotions, relief, exhaustion, and something I couldn't quite put my finger on. My parents were there, along with my wife, Emily, and my younger brother, Jason. They all stood at the door, smiling, but the atmosphere felt off. Maybe it was the way Emily's smile didn't quite reach her eyes, or the way Jason kept glancing at her when he thought I wasn't looking. "Welcome back, son," my dad said, clapping a hand on my shoulder. His voice was strong, but I could see the worry behind his eyes. My mom hugged me tightly, her grip almost too much for my still healing body. "We prayed for you every single day, Logan," she whispered, her voice trembling. Emily stood back at first, her arms crossed. She gave me a quick hug and said softly, "It's good to have you back." Jason was last to greet me. He's always been the golden boy, big, strong, with a grin that could charm anyone. But today, his smile seemed forced. "Good to have you back in one piece, bro," he said, pulling me into a careful hug. "Thanks," I replied, wincing as he patted my back. Good to be home. Inside, my parents helped me settle into the guest bedroom on the ground floor. Stairs were out of the question for me, so this was the best option. Emily didn't offer to move downstairs with me. She stayed in our bedroom upstairs. That felt cold, but I didn't say anything. What really threw me was Jason. He wasn't staying in the guest room with me. No, he was staying in the room upstairs, right next to Emily's. I tried not to think about it, but it gnawed at me. Why was he staying up there? Later that evening, after my parents had left, I brought it up to Emily. She was sitting on the edge of my bed, flipping through a magazine like everything was normal. "Hey," I said, taking a breath. "Why's Jason staying upstairs? I thought he'd be down here with me." Emily didn't look up. "He just prefers it up there," she said casually, like it was the most normal thing in the world. "Oh, he's been helping around the house while you were gone," she said casually, flipping through her magazine like we were discussing the weather. You know, with the yard work, fixing things, that kind of stuff. He'll be leaving in a week or so, once you're settled and feeling better. I frowned, her explanation not sitting right with me. Yard work? Jared? That didn't add up. Since when does Jared do yard work? He's never been the handyman type. She shrugged, still not looking up. Well, he's been stepping up. It's been a big help, honestly. I couldn't have managed everything on my own. Something about the way she said it made my gut tighten. It felt off. But why is he staying upstairs? I pressed. Wouldn't it make more sense for him to be down here with me? Linda finally looked up, her expression calm. Maybe too calm. Logan, it's just easier this way. He's been using that room for a while now, and it's not a big deal. You're going to be fine down here, and he'll be gone soon anyway. I wanted to push harder, to dig into why her explanation felt so wrong, but I was exhausted. Maybe it was the pain meds dulling my edge. Maybe I didn't want to start a fight on my first day back home. I let it go, but the unease in my gut lingered. My parents left shortly after, hugging me tightly and promising to check in the next day. As the door closed behind them, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. Linda's explanation just didn't add up, and Jared's presence in the house felt like a piece of a puzzle I didn't understand yet. But I didn't have the energy to figure it out. Not that night. Over the next 3 weeks, I threw myself into rehab. Each day was grueling, but I was making progress. The first time I managed to get to the bathroom on my own felt like a victory. The doctors were optimistic, saying my back was healing better than expected. I was getting stronger, and that gave me hope. But no amount of physical therapy prepared me for what happened that night. I'd been missing Linda, not just her presence, but the closeness we used to share. Since the injury, we hadn't slept in the same bed, and the distance between us felt unbearable. I hated it. So that night, I decided to surprise her. I wanted to show her that I was getting stronger, that we could start finding our way back to each other. Getting out of bed was slow and awkward, but I managed. My legs trembled with every step, sweat dripping down my back as I shuffled to the stairs. Each step felt like climbing a mountain, but I gritted my teeth and pushed through. When I finally reached the top, breathless but determined, I paused to steady myself. Her bedroom door was just a few feet away, and that's when I heard it. Laughter. Moaning. I froze, my brain refusing to process what my ears were telling me. No, not her. Not here. My legs felt like they were made of lead, but I forced myself forward, each step a battle against the betrayal clawing at my chest. My hand trembled as I gripped the doorknob and pushed it open. What I saw made my blood run cold. Jared, my brother, in bed with my wife. They didn't even notice me at first, too wrapped up in each other. You, I choked out, my voice thick with rage. Their heads snapped toward me, their faces masks of shock. Logan, Linda gasped, scrambling to cover herself. Jared's expression shifted from surprise to something I couldn't quite place. Guilt? Defiance? It's not, Jared started, but I didn't let him finish. Adrenaline surged through me, numbing the pain in my legs. I rushed forward, fists clenched, every ounce of betrayal fueling my movements. You bastard, I growled, swinging at him with everything I had. I landed one solid punch to his gut before he recovered. Jared was bigger, stronger, and faster. Especially in my condition, I didn't stand a chance. He dodged my next swing easily, his movements sharp and calculated. His fist connected with my ribs, pain exploding through my body. I crumpled to the floor, gasping for air, and everything went black. When I woke up, I was in the hospital. But this time, it wasn't a war zone that had put me there. It was my own brother and my own wife. A cop stood by the door, arms crossed, his expression unreadable. It took me a moment to recognize him. Timothy, an old high school buddy. We played football together, even double-dated a few times back in the day. But now, the look on his face wasn't one of friendship. It was pity. Logan, he said, stepping closer to the bed. You're awake? I tried to sit up, but the pain in my ribs and back stopped me cold. Tim, I croaked, my voice hoarse. What the hell is going on? Why am I here? Timothy sighed, pulling up a chair and sitting heavily. He looked exhausted, like he hadn't slept in days. "Your wife filed a restraining order against you," he said. "She says you attacked her last night, and Jared stepped in to protect her. According to her statement, you fell down the stairs and injured yourself." I stared at him, my mind racing to catch up. "What?" I managed. "That's not what happened. Jared, he's the one who attacked me. He was staying in my house, sleeping in the room next to my wife. And when I confronted him, I caught him in bed with Emily." The look Jared had given me, that smug, condescending look, burned into my mind, like I was already dead to him, like I didn't even matter. Timothy raised a hand to stop me. "Logan, I get it. I really do. But listen, the injuries you've got, they don't match Linda's story. You've got 3 broken ribs, a ruptured testicle, and you've re-injured your back. That's not from falling down some stairs. That's from someone beating the hell out of you." A flicker of hope surged in my chest. "So, you believe me?" Tim's jaw tightened, and he hesitated. "I believe there's more to this story, yeah. But right now, Linda's statement is the one on record. Until we can prove otherwise, the restraining order stands. You can't go back home, Logan. Not right now." I clenched my fists, my frustration and anger boiling over. "I can't go home? That's my house, Tim. My wife, my life. And she's just lying about everything?" Timothy nodded grimly, his face filled with regret. "I'm sorry, man. I really am. But until this is sorted out, you're stuck here. Even after that, it's not going to be easy." "What about my parents? Have you talked to them? They'll vouch for me. They know I'd never hurt Emily." Tim looked away, his face darkening. "I tried. Logan, I called them, but they refused to talk to you. They're siding with Emily and Jared for now." The room spun as his words hit me. My parents, my own parents, turning their backs on me. They had always been there for me, always had my back. And now, they were against me. "Tim," I said, my voice cracking. "What the hell is happening? Why is everyone acting like I'm the bad guy here?" Tim didn't answer right away. He just sat there, his hands clasped in front of him, his eyes filled with pity and regret. For the first time in my life, I felt utterly alone. The rest of the day passed in a haze of numbness, the weight of betrayal pressing down on me like a stone. By evening, a knock at the door broke the suffocating silence. My parents, Margaret and Henry, walked into the room, their faces filled with discomfort. They moved stiffly to the 2 visitor chairs near my bed and sat down without meeting my eyes. "You knew," I said flatly, my voice cutting through the heavy air. Margaret fidgeted, her fingers twisting in her lap. "Logan," she began hesitantly, "it's been going on since you were injured in Afghanistan." The air felt like it had been sucked out of the room. My jaw clenched as I fought to keep my composure. "Emily was down," she continued, her voice trembling. "She and Jared, they were emotional. They made a mistake." "A mistake?" I shot back, my voice razor-sharp with disbelief and anger. "And you're here covering up their mistake? You betrayed me, Mother." Margaret flinched as though I had struck her, her face crumpling as tears welled in her eyes. Before she could respond, Henry spoke up, his tone steady but detached. "What's done is done, Logan," he said. "We can't fix it. If you want a divorce, let me know. I'll talk to them. I'll convince them to drop the charges and not demand alimony or a settlement." His casual tone, as if dismantling my life was a simple business transaction, made my blood boil. "Why are you still talking to them?" I demanded, my voice rising. "Jared and Emily destroyed my marriage. They nearly killed me, and yet you're angry with no one but me?" I leaned forward, my gaze piercing into theirs. "Am I adopted, Margaret?" My mother's face collapsed, tears streaming down her cheeks as she broke into sobs. "Logan, don't leave," I said coldly, cutting her off. "I don't want to see you again." Margaret's tear-streaked face twisted with despair, but I didn't flinch. Henry stood, his expression unreadable, and helped her to her feet. Without another word, they walked out, the door clicking softly shut behind them. The next day, Emily showed up at the hospital. I wasn't expecting her, not after everything that had happened, but there she was, standing in the doorway, clutching a tissue like it was the only thing holding her together. Her eyes were red, her face pale. For a split second, I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. Then it all came rushing back. The betrayal, the lies, the way she'd let Jared destroy me. My blood boiled. Get her out of here. I roared, my voice echoing down the hall. I don't want to see her. She's a cheating liar who sleeps with her husband's brother and then files false charges against him. Get her out. Emily's face crumpled as she started crying, big, dramatic sobs that might have worked on me once. Not anymore. Not ever again. The nurse hurried in, flustered, and gently but firmly escorted her out of the room. I didn't care how much she cried or begged. She could rot for all I cared. Later that evening, Tim came back. He looked like he hadn't slept in days. His shoulders slumped as he dropped into a chair. The restraining order's been lifted, he said flatly. Emily dropped it. She's also filed for divorce. I couldn't help it, I smiled. A cold, bitter smile that didn't reach my eyes. Of course she did, I said. They want to be the bigger person, don't they? Let me go. Act like they're doing me a favor. Tim shifted uncomfortably. But I'm not going anywhere, I continued. They're not getting off that easy. They'll face the consequences for what they've done. Tim sighed, leaning forward, his elbows resting on his knees. Logan, listen to me. Just get out of this mess, buddy. You're still young. Walk away. Cut ties. There's no need for revenge. I clenched my jaw, the bitterness bubbling to the surface. No need for revenge? Are you kidding me, Tim? They destroyed my life. My wife, my brother. My own parents won't even talk to me. And you think I'm supposed to just let that go? Tim's hand rested on my shoulder, his grip firm yet kind. I get it, man. I do. But revenge? It's not going to fix anything. It's just going to drag you down with them. You've already been through enough. Don't let this consume you. I wanted to argue, to yell at him that he didn't understand, that he couldn't possibly know how it felt to have your entire world ripped apart. But deep down, I knew he wasn't wrong. Revenge wouldn't fix anything. It wouldn't heal my ribs or my back. It wouldn't undo the betrayal. It wouldn't bring back the life I lost. But that didn't mean I was ready to let go. Not yet. The divorce moved faster than I expected. Tim referred me to Carl, a sharp, no-nonsense lawyer who cut through the process like a buzz saw. Carl handled it all with the kind of efficiency that almost made me suspicious. Linda didn't contest anything. No alimony, no settlement, nothing. It was like she couldn't wait to wash her hands of the whole thing. Even the house wasn't an issue. It wasn't in my name. My parents owned it, and now Jared was living there. I walked away with nothing but my dignity, if you could even call it that. You got lucky, Carl said one afternoon during a meeting, tapping his pen against the edge of the desk. She could have made this a lot messy, eh? Lucky? I snorted, shaking my head. I don't feel lucky, Carl. I feel like I got run over by a freight train. Twice. Carl nodded, his face softening. He didn't argue. He'd seen the photos of my injuries, read the medical reports. He knew what I'd been through. Recovering from the physical damage was a whole different battle. The fight with Jared had set me back months in rehab. My back was a mess. My ribs made every breath feel like a knife stabbing into my chest, and my body felt like it had betrayed me. But I pushed through it. Day by day, session by grueling session, I kept going. There wasn't another option. Tim checked on me regularly, always with the same mix of concern and encouragement. You're looking better, he said one day, leaning casually against the doorframe of the rehab center. Still limping, but you're moving better. Thanks, I said, wiping sweat from my forehead. It feels like it's taking forever, but I'm getting there. You will, Tim replied firmly. You're stubborn as hell, Logan. If anyone can come back from this, it's you. Some days, I believed him. Other days, it felt like I was going through the motions, like I'd never really get back to the person I was before Afghanistan, before the crash, before Linda and Jared. But I kept at it. I didn't have a choice. 11 months later, I was as close to my old self as I could get. Leaner, stronger in a different way. My body was scarred, and so was my mind. But I wasn't the same person anymore. Maybe that was a good thing. Then my mother tried to reach out. Calls, texts, even showing up at my apartment unannounced. I ignored everyone. Seeing her name on my phone made something tighten in my chest. A bitter mix of anger and sadness I couldn't untangle. One day, she showed up at my door, knocking softly and calling my name. Her voice trembled as she said, "Logan, please. I just want to talk. I'm your mother. I love you." I stood on the other side of the door, fists clenched, jaw tight. "You lost the right to call yourself my mother when you sided with them," I said coldly. "Go home." She didn't leave right away. I could hear her crying, her sobs muffled but clear. Part of me wanted to open the door, to let her in, to forgive her. But the bigger part, the angrier part, couldn't forget, couldn't forgive. Eventually, she left. For weeks after, the silence from her was deafening. Then the call from my father came. I almost didn't answer, but curiosity got the better of me. Maybe he had something to say that would make sense. "Logan," he began, his voice as gruff and impatient as ever. "You need to stop this nonsense. You should be thankful we got you a clean divorce. Linda could have taken you for everything." My anger flared, sharp and hot. "Thankful?" I snapped. "You think I should be thankful? You stood by while your other son, ruined my life. You let Jared take everything from me, and you expect me to be thankful?" "Logan, don't," I cut him off, my voice trembling with rage. "Don't try to act like some kind of martyr. You didn't condemn Jared, and you didn't defend me. You're a coward, Dad. You're as much to blame as they are." There was a long silence. For a moment, I thought he'd hung up. Then he spoke, his voice low and furious. "You don't get to talk to me like that, Logan. After everything we've done for you." "Done for me?" I interrupted, my voice rising. "You turned your back on me when I needed you the most. So don't call me again. Ever." I hung up before he could respond, my hands trembling with anger. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead in the base clinic, casting a sterile glow. I stood shirtless, scars on full display, as the doctor prodded at my back. "Range of motion's better," he muttered, jotting notes. "But your lumbar spine's still compromised. 2 more months of rehab, minimum." I clenched my jaw. 2 more months in limbo while my unit prepped for deployment without me. "Come on, Doc," I forced a grin. "You're saying I can't dodge bullets because my back's got an attitude?" He didn't laugh. "Bullets don't care about your sense of humor. Neither do RPGs. Come back in 8 weeks. That night, the barracks felt like home for the first time in a long time. The guys passed a bottle of whiskey, Garcia clapping my shoulder. "Hell, Logan, maybe the universe is doing you a favor. Now you've got time to fix that mess back home." Henderson, ever the quiet one, leaned in. "I know a guy. Makes problems disappear. Just say the word." The room went silent. For a second, I let myself picture it. Jared gone, Emily erased, their lies buried. But I shook my head. And waste all that suffering I've got planned? Nah, dying's too easy. Garcia laughed, raising his drink. "Attaboy. Slow burn's better anyway." Later, when the others left, Henderson stayed. "You ain't really gonna do something stupid, are you, Sarge?" I stared at the empty bottle. "Stupid's my middle name." "Nah," he said. "It used to be loyalty. Don't trade it for revenge." I didn't sleep that night. Pacing my apartment, my mind spiraled with ways to make them pay. Catch Jared at the gym, break his knees, burn the house down. But every plan ended the same way. Me losing what little I had left. Still, the rage simmered. By dawn, I made a vow, whispered to my reflection, "I'll get even." 3 days later, I met Grace. She walked into the dive bar like she owned it, boots clicking on the sticky floor. "You look like shit," she said, ordering 2 whiskeys neat, "like someone pissed in your protein powder." I smirked, but it felt empty. "You heard about the eval?" She nodded. "Heard you failed. Also heard you're not losing sleep over it." I took a sip, steadying myself. "It's not just the eval. It's everything. The wife? The brother?" I nodded. "And the parents. The whole damn circus." Grace leaned in. "I've heard whispers, but I want it straight. All of it." So I told her. The crash, the rehab, Emily's betrayal, Jared's fists. my parents turning their backs. She didn't interrupt, just listened, jaw tightening. When I finished, she signaled for another round. That's some next-level betrayal, she muttered. Yeah, I said, and I'm done letting it fester. Her gaze turned sharp. You want out of the pain? Or out of the people? I met her eyes. I want them to feel it. All of it. She nodded, slow and deliberate. I know someone. Not a trigger puller, a problem solver. I tilted my head. Legal? She smirked. You want legal? Call a priest. You want results? The air between us thickened. I could back out. Should back out. But the live wire in my chest wouldn't let me. What's the play? I asked. Grace leaned in, voice like a blade. You meet him. You talk. He'll show you options. Grace's grip was firm. Her eyes locked onto mine. You walk into this, Logan. You better be ready to go all the way. No backing out. I didn't blink. I'm ready. She studied me for a second longer, then released my wrist and scribbled a name and address on a napkin. Tomorrow, 10 p.m. Dock 14, Old Fisheries Warehouse. Ask for El Fantasma. I pocketed the napkin, feeling the weight of the decision I was making settle in my chest. Why are you helping me? Grace smirked, throwing some cash on the table before standing. Because Familia isn't just blood. And you? You're family. I nodded, muttered a thanks, and walked out, the crisp napkin burning against my palm. The next night, the fisheries warehouse smelled of salt water, rust, and old fish guts. The kind of place you didn't want to be caught in after dark. A grizzled worker, silent and efficient, led me through a maze of crates and dimly lit pathways until we stopped in front of a door. He knocked once, then stepped aside. Inside, a small, sharp-eyed man sat behind a desk cluttered with files and old cigars. His mustache was too big for his face, his grin too calm for the kind of reputation I suspected he carried. His voice was smooth, dangerously so. Grace called. Said you need help. I nodded, keeping my tone even. I do. He leaned back in his chair, studying me. No killings, right? I hesitated, then nodded. He sighed, almost disappointed. Shame. A little blood keeps things interesting. I ignored the jab. No blood. Just need my brother and my parents handled. No one dies. El Fantasma drummed his fingers against the desk, his gaze sharp. You know, reputations are fragile. A scandal can destroy someone quicker than a bullet ever could. I crossed my arms. What's your point? His grin widened. You ruin someone by dragging them through the mud. Make sure every little piece of their life crumbles in front of everyone who ever trusted them. I nodded, seeing exactly where this was going. And you can do that? His chuckle was low and deliberate. I've done worse. He circled the desk, stopping just in front of me. No death, just complete destruction. That what you want? That's what I want. He nodded once. Consider it done. 2 days later, my burner phone buzzed. A blocked number. I answered. Watch the news, El Fantasma rasped. Then the line went dead. My hands were steady, but my pulse roared in my ears as I grabbed the remote. The screen flickered mid-broadcast. Breaking news tonight involving local football star Jared Smith. Police confirm his arrest following a violent altercation outside a downtown bar, allegedly involving a sexual misconduct scandal. The camera cut to Jared's BMW, its door hanging open like a broken wing. A furious older woman screamed at the cops in Spanish, veins bulging in her neck. Behind her, a younger woman, maybe 19, sat wrapped in a foil blanket, mascara streaked down her cheeks. According to witnesses, the reporter continued, Jared Smith allegedly coerced the young woman into his car after buying her drinks. Her mother, tracking her daughter's location, arrived in time to confront Smith. Bystanders intervened. Police say Smith sustained minor injuries before his arrest. The victim claims Smith attempted to assault her, though Smith's lawyer denies all allegations, calling it a setup. The camera zoomed in as Jared was dragged out of the precinct in cuffs, his all-American smirk gone, his face a swollen mess of bruises. My burner buzzed again. Satisfied? El Fantasma's tone was flat, impassive. I watched Jared's perp walk in silence. He'll walk. I muttered. Rich white boy with a lawyer? They'll slap his wrist. A dry chuckle crackled through the line. The girl's mother works at the DA's office. Her cousin's a detective. This arrest? That's just the opening act. The trial? That's where his life turns to hell. I swallowed hard. And the girl? A waitress. Single mom. Student. Jared's type. A pause. She'll testify. So will her mother. And the security footage? He exhaled, amused. Very convincing. The screen cut to Jared's mugshot. Eyes bloodshot, lips split. The number on his jersey already photoshopped into a prison meme. Trending. The line went dead. I sank onto the bed, the remote still clenched in my hand. The news anchor's voice droning on in the background. From local hero to pariah, community demands justice for alleged victim. I stared at the screen, watching Jared's downfall unfold in real time. The cops had arrested him, but the real fun was just getting started. The next day, my parents started calling. The knocking on my door was relentless. I knew who it was before I even got up. My so-called family, desperate to shove their way back into my life. I almost let them rot in the hallway, let them stew in their guilt, but curiosity got the better of me. I yanked the door open, and there they were. Mom, Dad, Emily. A betrayal trifecta. Mom's eyes were swollen from crying. Emily clutched her stomach like she was already playing the perfect mother, and Dad stood stiff, his face set like stone. What do you want? I asked, blocking the doorway. Mom shoved past me, Emily trailing behind her. Dad hesitated for half a second before stepping in and shutting the door behind him. Logan, please. Mom's voice cracked. Emily's pregnant. She needs help. I crossed my arms, leaning against the wall. She's got the wrong guy, then. Emily took a shaky step forward. It's yours, Logan. I barked out a short, humorless laugh. Mine? After everything? You expect me to believe that? Mom's hands twisted the strap of her purse. The timeline matches. You were still together when? When she was screwing my brother. I cut in, my voice like steel. When she was lying to the cops, letting him put me in a hospital. That's what you meant to say, right? Dad's patience snapped. Enough. This isn't about you. It's about the child. It needs a father. I turned, really looking at the man who'd raised me, who'd pinned my medals to my chest, who'd disowned me the second it was convenient. A father, I repeated, voice eerily calm. You mean like you? The kind of father who turns his back on his own son? Who picks a liar and a cheat over the kid who bled for his country? I let out a breath, shaking my head. No thanks. Emily was sobbing now, clutching her stomach as if that would make me care. Logan, I was scared, she whispered. I was scared? I laughed, sharp and cold. Were you scared when you lied to the cops? When you let Jared beat the hell out of me? Or were you scared when you were spreading your legs for him? Mom gasped. Logan language. This is your child we're talking about. I turned to her, the heat in my chest flaring white hot. You don't get to play grandma now. You picked your side. All of you did. Dad stepped in, his voice sharp as a whip. You will not abandon your responsibility. You're a Marine. I scoffed. I corrected. Thanks to Jared. And you know what Marines don't do? Raise another man's bastard. Emily flinched like I'd slapped her. It's yours, she whispered. I leaned in, lowering my voice. Even if it was, you think I'd let you near a kid of mine? You'd poison it, turn it into another version of yourself. A liar, a backstabber. I straightened, tilting my head toward Dad. You're all delusional. But, hell, since we're tossing around insane ideas, let me give you one. I turned to my father, deadpan. Why don't you divorce Mom and marry Emily? That way the kid gets a father, Mom gets her perfect little family, and I don't have to deal with any of you. The room went silent. Then chaos erupted. Mom shrieked, her face turning bright red. You think you can just tell us what to do? She screamed. This is our family's business. I didn't flinch, just pulled out my phone and dialed 911. Within minutes, a squad car pulled up, and in walked Tim, his face unreadable but his presence all business. He scanned the scene inside. Parents, Emily, out. Now, he ordered. They hesitated. This isn't over, Mom spat as she grabbed Emily's arm and stormed out. Dad followed, silent for once. I didn't say a word, just watched them go. Tim turned back to me, shaking his head. You okay? I exhaled slowly. I'm getting there. Jared's trial was a joke. Of course, nothing stuck. He got probation because there wasn't enough solid evidence, but the real punishment came in ways he never saw coming. The girl's mother took her anger to social media. The post went viral overnight. The public turned on him. His sponsorships evaporated. His contracts dissolved, and within a week, he was unemployed. Broke. A walking disgrace. Then Emily decided to make her next move. She sued me for child support. I nearly choked on my coffee when I read the notice. You've got to be kidding me, I muttered, tossing the papers on the table. Tim, who had been flipping through his notes, smirked. She's got some nerve. I'll give her that. I shook my head, letting out a slow exhale. All right, let's end this. The courtroom was silent, save for the scratching of the judge's pen against paper. Emily sat across from me, her hands clenched in her lap, her once polished confidence cracking like shattered glass. She was cornered, and she knew it. Carl, my lawyer, stood firm beside me, his voice calm but lethal. Your Honor, my client has complied with every request. The DNA test has been conducted. The results are clear. Logan Smith is not the father of this child. The words echoed in the room like a gunshot. Emily flinched, her breath hitching. Her lawyer shifted uncomfortably. The judge, an old man with eyes as sharp as a blade, barely glanced up from the documents in front of him. No DNA match, no child support, he said simply, his voice devoid of sympathy. Miss Parker, you knowingly filed a fraudulent claim. If Mr. Smith wishes to press charges, I won't stop him. Emily's face drained of color. For the first time, she looked afraid. Carl leaned in, just enough for his words to cut. Unless you want to face perjury charges, I suggest you tell the court who the real father is. Her lips parted, but no sound came. She looked down, shaking her head slightly. The judge exhaled, disappointed. So that's how it's going to be. Case dismissed. Emily left the courtroom like a ghost, her world collapsing around her, but her fall was just beginning, because El Fantasma had already set the match to the gasoline. By nightfall, the entire town knew. The news outlets ran with it. Cheating wife, restraining order scandal, paternity fraud exposed. They played the footage of Jared's arrest, rehashed the assault, dissected every detail of the trial. And then came the final blow. Emily Parker, carrying Jared Smith's child. It wasn't just a whisper. It wasn't just gossip. It was viral, unstoppable, a wildfire consuming everything in its path. People turned on her like vultures. Employers wouldn't touch her. Old friends deleted her number. Strangers whispered when she passed by. She had no allies left. Even my parents, the ones who had cast me aside, suddenly found themselves drowning. You sided with them, the world sneered. Now you'll burn with them. They tried to hold on, tried to keep their heads above water, but it was useless. Their reputations were in ruins. Their money dried up. And then came the real loss, their house. They sold it, scrambling to help Jared pay off the woman's family, to keep him from going under completely. It didn't work. Jared was finished. His sponsors had abandoned him. His contracts were terminated, and now his savings were gone too. He was no longer the golden boy, the hometown hero. He was a disgrace. He had nothing left but a last name that everyone spat on. And Emily? She ran. Fled town like a thief in the night, tail tucked between her legs. I heard she moved in with her grandmother in Utah, far away from the wreckage she'd created. It didn't matter. No distance could erase the shame she carried. Then, one last call. I was sitting in my barracks in Saudi Arabia when the burner phone buzzed. I already knew who it was. El Fantasma, I said. He exhaled a slow breath. Jared's living in a one-bedroom apartment. Drives a car with a broken muffler. Your parents? Selling their old jewelry to make ends meet. I said nothing, letting it sink in. And Emily? I asked finally. She's in Utah, he answered. Probably for the best. I closed my eyes for a second. I thought revenge would feel different. Louder. bloodier. But it wasn't. It was quiet, cold, absolute. You're in Saudi now, he added after a moment. Nice place. If you know where to go. I smirked. Appreciate the update. He hesitated, then said simply, anytime. The line went dead. I set my phone down and looked out at the desert, endless and open, stretching toward the horizon. I had lost everything, and then I built something new. I hadn't started dating again, but I would. Someday. For now, I was content with this. I survived. And they? They were already dead. Not in the way people think. Not in a way that leaves bodies in the dirt, but in the way that truly matters. They had lost everything, and they would never get it back. Dear listeners, please share your thoughts in the comments. And don't forget to subscribe to our channel. See you soon.